Okay, we'll recommence the briefing with the Mangawhai and Mangataroto pool feasibility studies item, please. Thank you, Mark.
To get you a chair up here permanently, Mark.
Doing well.
Okay. Good. Okay, so this is the other item.
So, team, just for clarity, we're now back talking about the long-term plan again.
Yep. Sorry, there's so there we go. Okay. So I've chosen this image quite deliberately because I don't want it to be taken as a signal to the community that we've had 2 studies done here, one on Mangataroto and one on Mangawhai, possibilities of providing pool facilities there. And I don't want it to be taken to as a sign to the community that we're looking at diving into building a swimming pool. It's more about dipping your toes cautiously and having a bit of a think. Okay. So start here. So in terms of why we did these studies, where these studies came from. So you had the Northland Aquatic Facilities Plan, and that identified a shortage of pool space in Mangawhai, and also identified opportunities in Mangataroto, and did a case study on the community group that was operating in Mangataroto, trying to make better use of the Otamatia High School pool. We were also getting a lot of submissions and a lot of requests and interest in the Mangawhai community regarding having a public aquatic facility in the Mangawhai community. And we didn't really have a lot of information at the time around pros or cons thereof. So there was a discussion, there was a desire to have a discussion, but there wasn't really anything to inform that discussion. So I did a bit of prompting to Sport Northland, who agreed to commission a couple of studies, and we got funding from Sport New Zealand and a bit of funding from the Kaipara District Council, and we were able to get these 2 studies done at quite a good price. These reports are about enabling an informed discussion between the elected members and your constituents around if this is something which we should entertain or not. At least enables us to have that discussion be informed. So key findings for Mangataroto, we found that yes, it would be feasible to take one or both of the existing swimming pools in Mangataroto, the 2 school pools, and to upgrade them to allow greater community use. We worked out how that would be done. You would look at heating and covering the pools to try and extend the season. Looking around Northland, this goes back to the Northland Aquatic Facility Plan. You look around Northland, there's a lot of cold water lane pools. There seems to be this obsession that we're going to breed the next Olympic swimmer. Whereas there's a shortage of warm water learn to swim pools to try and help children learn about water and water safety and feel confident when they fall in the water so that we have fewer drownings. And the focus has been very much on that sort of Olympic swimming, lane swimming. So we understand the sort of the how. This project could go ahead without council involvement. The community could work together with the Ministry of Education, local school boards, and they could progress this without council involvement. If council were to want to get involved, you could look at things like grant funding or staff providing support to help facilitate these things. For Mangawhai, the first finding that surprised me a bit was that it is feasible to have an aquatic facility in Mangawhai. I would have thought that given the lack of water supply and the electricity grid, wouldn't be such a feasible thing. But apparently a modern pool facility is a bit like a newer model of the same car. It's a lot more fuel efficient than the older models. So even with operating on tank water and with solar heating and the power that's available there, it would be feasible to have a swimming pool in Mangawhai. The other finding, a key finding, is that you'd require a non-traditional operating model. So if you wanted to build an aquatic facility in Mangawhai and have the doors open anytime, so you can turn up anytime with togs and a towel, pay your fee, jump in the water, and there's a lifeguard there, and you can go swimming anytime. That would be quite expensive to keep the doors open. It's more likely that you would partner with a swim school, other providers, so that so the public could use the facility, but they would be using it through enrollment in the swim school, enrollment in hydrotherapy, aquarobics classes, or, swim club membership, that kind of a thing. So it'd be open to the community to use it, but not through a traditional turn up anytime you want to sort of a model to be able to enroll in a program. As well as you potentially have, the Surf Lifesavers could potentially volunteer to provide times when it's open as well. It'd be sort of a non-traditional operating model. We also found that construction could be phased. So those were the key findings for Mangawhai. In terms of where to from here, as I say, it's about dipping your toes in the water and having a think. So it's about having an informed discussion with the constituents around if this is a priority or not. Then you can look at things like possibly including funding in the long-term plan, weighing it up against other funding priorities. Obviously, it's just one more of many things that council can consider contributing to being involved with for the long-term plan. Any questions?
Right, councillor Lambeth.
Yeah, through the mayor. So these assumptions, how did you come to these?
Which assumptions?
The ones about lane swimming is out?
No, lane swimming is not out. What we noted is there's an over provision in Northland and New Zealand, I think generally, in lane swimming. So cold water lane swimming, there's a lot of it provided, mostly through schools. Most of the pool provision is through schools, and most of them have cold water lane pools. There's a real shortage of the warm water learn to swim type, but no, it's not out. It's also you can include, they can be included as well. And I think the studies point towards a hybrid type model where the water temperature is warm enough that you can get in and do a bit of learn to swim type activities, or there might be a second pool, but the water is also cool enough to allow some of that fitness swimming as well.
So, okay, so the cheapest thing is just to go for big spa pools and just put them in, not even worry about a pool. Is that what you're saying?
There's been, I think, mobile pools included in the study. I think there was there was even just.
No, you've taken it too literally, sorry.
Yeah.
Lane swimming is the only way that you can do fitness training, whether it be ankle walking, just putting in the Ks, I'm sorry. And what you're saying, unless you've got a secret key and you know the caretaker at the school, if you're a visitor town, swimming's out for you. That's basically what that direction is going. A visitor coming into town, they can't go and do laps somewhere or keep their training up.
So is that with respect to the Mangawhai findings?
Just the whole general.
Generally, so coming back to the Northern Aquatic Facilities Plan. So yes, there's not a lot of pool facilities around, like public pool facilities around Northland. And the ones which are there tend to be cold water lane pools, but they are associated with schools. So you do need to have some arrangement with the school to use the pool.
So for a working person who works the standard 8 to 5, you go to any aquatic centre or anywhere to try and do some fitness training, you're struggling to get room there to do any fitness training. And you've given the indication that there's an oversupply of it. I don't know.
Chair, Mark's just feeding back information from.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering where this has come from. I just find it bizarre.
I think it was more identifying the difference in the costings though. You have to have a pool that's already open with surf guards full time where people might pop up and have a swim or might not turn up.
The running costs go through the roof.
Yeah.
It reverts to an easiest hybrid system where people have a membership. Let's work through that.
And so that's where I was going to the ridiculous situation where we just put up spa pools with a metre high thing and then people complain in the warm water. There's a little bit more to swimming than what that report says. I'm very critical of that report. I'm sorry. It's not what I see. Yeah. I'm just.
Councillor Canton.
Is there any demand, sort of like a public-private partnership, like where we supply the land, someone else does the pool? I know there's a couple of local people that have been hunting around for some time about putting their own pool in. Does that come across your desk at all?
Yeah, so that's the sort of opportunity that you might look at where it's not a straight matter of councillors building a pool with council funding and then going to operate it, on the traditional basis, but where you look at some kind of public-private partnership.
Are there some examples around the country we could look at for that?
Northern Aquatic Centre in Silverdale runs on that basis.
To be honest, I'm not an expert in swimming pools,
No,
but
just another way
I
of
believe there are.
guiding direction.
Well, there's a few in the north, far north, we've got one or two. We go down to Mount Albert Grammar, I could name dozens of them around the country. Mount Albert Grammar have a private public partnership.
I fully support a pool. I'm just aware that also, there's lots of other stuff that needs paying for. I think the demand, particularly in Mangawhai, would be there. I hear what you're saying about lots of cold water lane swimming. The main demand actually seems to be from families trying to get their kids to learn to swim, requires warmer water. That said, there is also a demand for older people to train on it as well. But in terms of councils getting involved in running pools, I do wonder if or putting some feelers out for someone that is prepared to undertake that side of the risk, and we come in with some land. It strikes me as a far better option from a council perspective.
So on that matter, Mike Ferguson came to council and made a presentation about exactly that, arranging a pool. And I'm probably of a similar mind to you that supporting getting a private venture up and going, whether it's through providing land or whatever. But I think we've already had a pitch to the council from Mike. I just wonder whether the next step for that might be that council staff have a talk to Mike about it, because he seemed to be quite clear that it could happen.
That presentation might have been before my time.
It was, but it's not. But it is quite recent.
I'm actually aware of another person as well.
Yeah, I was just going to add that Mike Howard and myself met with
Emma?
Emma from Swim Mangawhai, and just covering off maybe land, and then they would provide the external fundings and the facility. So I mean, I think there are conversations and people are already looking into it within the community. It's just finding something that works, and we're not, council aren't just funding
And that's exactly
a
what,
facility. Yeah.
that's exactly what Darwin did with them. They funded the thing 100%, but the land was provided.
From my perspective, it's important for Tamariki to have that learning capacity. I was a swim station instructor, so I totally support that 100%. And I'm also thinking about the bigger picture too, like we do have the beach down the road. But then obviously, if our Tamariki do not know how to navigate themselves through basic fundamentals of swimming, then that could be quite significant. I'm gathering there's a surf lifesaving or lifeguards that already do their work in that space, but I would talk the potential of Whenua being given over for that potential for them to do that in their own sector, which, yeah.
I think that argument actually comes back to having warmer water as well. I mean, over that hotter period, there is the beach right there. That said, I quite like the pool in summer too. So.
Okay, do you want anything more from us on this, Mark?
No, it's just about providing the information to you. So do you want to move on next?
Thank you very much. Do we want to, now that Brett has arrived, to move to previous item? Is that what we want to do? Okay.
Sorry, were we going to discuss the Mangataroto feasibility study at all? Or?
It's entirely up to the elected members if you've got further to add or discuss here.
You guys want to talk about it? Are you happy? You read it?
Yeah, no, I know Mangataroto are trying to work within the high school in regards to being able to utilise the pool, because all they've got is the primary school one. Yeah, that's obviously just still got to go through the schools and all the rest of it. I don't think, it'll come to its own fruition initially.
I just didn't want all the conversation to be about Mangawhai.
I think, chuck a couple of concrete blocks in the Bliven estuary and have the tide connection in without the.
There's nothing wrong with these pools. I've trained in them. Your back just goes red in the winter.
I think, yeah, expecting a warm pool is just modern kids, isn't it?
I think it's a good opportunity for Learn to Swim, like, you know, in Dargaville, we've got the, you know, we've got the heated swimming pool where the Learn to Swim takes place, and we've also got the lanes where, you know, they are the more sort of, those focused on, you know, sort of fitness and that go to, so.
Yeah, I think having bicycle.
Okay, thank you, Mark. We will move now to the Kauri Coast Community Pool operating model. Thank you, Brett and Hayley. First time you've appeared before the new council. You could introduce yourself and tell us all about what you do. Second, is it?
We did a briefing report in December.
Okay.
You have short memories. But, kia ora, for those who have not seen me before, met me before, read anything from me before, my name's Brett Young and I have a business called Community Asset Solutions. We focus on sports facilities, design, development, maintenance, and fixing up of said facilities. So, and obviously this project has been a bit dear to my heart for the last year or so. And it is now at a point where some exciting decisions can be made. I think we've researched it enough to actually understand where it needs to sit within the landscape. So I'll take this as read. Hayley, is that correct? That the members have seen both the report and also the presentation? It extends obviously on the first business case report that was approximately 12 months ago. And that primarily looked at getting inside the four walls and looking at the operations of it and seeing what we uncovered was worthwhile taking forward. And that was the key focus of that. And now we're talking about the ownership options. But I do believe that it is important to dwell on the operating factors. A lot changed in the operations in 12 months at the pool. And that was primarily around a better summer. So there was more access. There was a lot more attendance. But operationally, I think maybe a shot was fired over the bow somewhere. And there was probably a little bit more effort in terms of the operation of the facility. So the results operationally between the 2 years were significantly better from an operational, facility manager's point of view. And that's reflected in those kind of key highlights there. But given it's in my blood, I'm still disappointed that I have not seen an official asset management plan on a facility of that scale. And to rebuild that pool in Auckland, I shouldn't mention Auckland, but cost modelling is a bit higher. But if you were to rebuild that pool in Christchurch, you're in the 20s of millions. So it is a significant asset, and it's a really important asset for community well-being, not just physical, but also the feel, et cetera, et cetera. So that's reflected in the theme of what this latest report says. But of course, you heavily subsidise it as well, which I think is an important factor to keep in mind. But good to see that the summary state in the outside, there's a little bit of investment put into the operating plant, but it's still struggling to actually wash its own face, that pool plant. And if you've been into the dark depths of pool operating systems, you kind of know what I mean, that it's at the end of its life, and it's up there, it's got a big red piece of chart beside it, which means that it's going to cost even more and more and more. The chart's going to go steeper and steeper to the right if it's not renewed or invested in significantly around your renewals. But as a result of a great season, a great summer, patronage is coming back up, like good visitation for that year, that season-ending year. And on quick reflection, it's a good number of residents who are utilising that. Everyone in Dargaville 4.3 times is not a bad effort in terms of the metrics.
Councillor Lambeth.
quickly onto that, it was an exceptionally late opening time as well, which makes that figure,
Really good.
Could have been five
yes,
times.
like,
Even better.
am I correct there? Like it was, from previous years, say when we're looking at 2021,
Yes, you're correct.
It was open for probably 2 months more, was it?
Yeah, it was, and in the big report, you'll see the metrics on the day, season openings versus the usage, all that sort of stuff. So it certainly was, you did right, good observation, that it was open a lot less. But remember, this is the season prior. So the season that's just been was even less opened. It didn't open till the 20th of December.
Yeah.
A lot of complaints about that.
A lot of complaints.
Yeah. Yeah, you only have to be following it on Facebook to read those, and that's referenced in the report. But certainly you did right. That is quite a even more sobering statistic once you put into perspective the amount of time it was open.
I think less than 12, just about 12 weeks late. It's opened, yeah.
This year,
Yeah.
the previous year was about just November the 30th or something like that.
So
It's from
4 or 5
basic
weeks.
dates. But so that curve going back up means just means also that the subsidy spread across the visitation is much better as well. So you tend to get, as elected members, you'll get more bang for buck in terms of the attendance. And this is a real snapshot on the key financial optics. In December, when I came to give the briefing report, some of the numbers were jumbled. So I apologise for that. These numbers are accurate and they've been peer reviewed a number of times by people with fine-tooth combs. So you'll note that the subsidy impact 75% versus 80% from the previous year is much better from a subsidy perspective. But certainly there's been a remarkable improvement in pool operations income as well, which is positive, and a reasonable attempt at getting community funding for various things. So it's good. And in the operational costs, you'll see those are the key items that we would always look at first in a pool operation and measuring where the key costs are loaded.
Councillor Lambeth.
I see there's two things, which numbers we want to see. Staff costs, well, that's got to do with the time it was open, obviously.
Yep.
But water costs, wow. What happened there, do you think?
Well, I had a good conversation with Sport Northland around that. I think there was a crossover in timing of their financial reporting. That's what I'm suspicious of, but whether or not it's a true record of the actual water, given what you're going to see in next report, because they entered it and filled it up and there was a desperation shortage, a week before Christmas, so to speak. So those water costs can fluctuate depending on supply, but also depending on timings. I suspect they didn't empty the 50-metre pool as much as they should have. 2.5 litres of water at what cost for the accountants is pretty significant for Kaipara.
But the energy costs have gone through the roof, and is that just
Absolutely.
keeping with rise in energy prices or not?
Gone up commercially.
Yeah, look, if I had a crystal ball that was bigger than what I've already got, it would suggest that it's to do with, macroeconomic measures, but it's primarily to do with the ineffectiveness of the pool plant.
Yeah.
That's the key driver of those costs being high. You and I both know that thing on the roof is driving the costs of the energy up on that pool. And it's a key driver for it, because as soon as they turn off the solar system as well, which they had for the whole of this season, it puts back pressure on the heat pumps and all the other operating plants. So there is no easy solution for that apart from getting a more effective, efficient system.
Quick question, the maintenance spend is right up. Is that real maintenance or is that more capital really? Or was it just
It's fixing
Right out.
stuff.
No,
fixing breaking stuff?
no capital.
It's reactive. And there's a little bit of that word I don't like, deferred, in there as well. So, and it's a bit of a shame, but it is, and they spent 170K this year, as you'll see in the big report, on just getting media filters and, you know, the pool plant actually operational for this year. So. And that quickly moves us on with those kind of sobering bits and pieces of information onto probably the best bang for buck in terms of ownership options. So you'll remember back into the very first report, we looked at 4 different options, but now we narrowed it down to 2. And that heavily involves Kaipara District Council in a significant leadership role. So whilst I'm quite good at juggling, so I quite like the PPP model, but also like the in-house model. So I slightly favour the PPP model, as said there. But it was quite sobering when my good friend Craig Carter, who's the CEO of CLM, said to me, you know, if we reduce the hours and we take away this pool, a lot of those Dargaville kids won't have a Christmas. They love it. They live there. And I've seen it more and more and more as well. In fact, the day that we were there before it opened, just checking out the facility, 2 carloads of local people pulled up. When's the pool opening, sir? When's the pool opening? So it was good to see that there was some sort of acknowledgement that it was a valuable piece of the community infrastructure. You probably don't need to be preached to about pros and cons of if you own it or not. It's a significant asset, but there is a significant return of community value and social good as the bottom line for having a facility of this quality and scale in the district. There's nothing to be sneezed at. There is nothing like this north of Auckland. You know, they just pumped, what, 3.5 million into Whangarei Aquatic Centre? And
It's not 50 metres.
it's not 50 metres. And that's a year-round pool as well. They do skite about having around 150,000 visits a year to the facility when it's open.
The one with the wave pool and the slides.
Yeah.
It's a much bigger facility, really.
Yeah, much bigger.
You got a cafe and.
Yeah, and then they run it as such. But it just also presents how the opportunity can become a more destination type facility within the community as well. It's interesting, New Zealanders love controlled water. You know, having been a manager at QE2 in Christchurch, you open it, they come. And they come and they come and they come. And I think that's really important as well to acknowledge. One of the struggles that we may face with an in-house ownership or a council ownership model is the ability to attract additional funding, unless you can be really open with your fiscal modelling and your financial modelling. And I think that's important to acknowledge as well, which is probably why I favour slightly the PPP model, which means that we can tap into the community if it still exists in terms of their funding options. You know, I presume this amazing facility was built on the back of community funding and other funding sources. It wasn't. Okay, then that crushes it.
Cows.
Yeah, well.
Every farmer, the basis of it, every farmer had a couple of animals, for the complex animals on their farms.
You're just helping me sell the PPP model, Gordon. That's my point. Exactly. So there is other ways of attracting funding.
Sorry. Excuse me, we've already been approached by the Te Tai Tokoroa Water Trust, who wants to help us out with the water bill, but they can't do that if it's probably council owned. Just on this, how much would it take to fix up that plant?
It's around $1 million.
How many?
It was 750,000, but plus some, I think.
Yeah.
And so
$1 million.
you're saying that we would then get a complex which could be valued at 50 million, 20 million.
Yeah, but look, the plant is.
I'm just trying to get your figures there because you were.
You sit here and I get it, it's an asset. If you want to replace it, it's a lot of money. It's also an asset that costs us $500,000 a year. It also provides a public benefit. It's a juggle.
Yeah. And look, to get that plant to be functioning properly right here, right now, is a little bit less than that figure, but it depends on how we replace it. You know, we're not going to build another Eden Park at the same scale, to use my rugby analogies. We would shrink it and we would build it in a bit more fit for purpose modelling. You know, we just don't build solar systems like that anymore. If we ever build them like that.
No, that's bizarre.
Yeah. Well, quite frankly, my solar consultants are telling me it's not a solar system anyway. It's just a forced pipe heating pipe system, relying on heating from the sun to heat the pipes when they're on the roof. And that's the community or the society. We can call it what we like, but at the end of the day, the legal structure is as a society model. Trusts are going out of fashion a little bit. So we're back into the incorporated societies world, a little bit less administrative and much easier also from a legal compliance point of view with an incorporated society. And they're not so much much benefit for philanthropic contributions these days either. But that modelling, the advantage is attracting community funding that's outside of Kaipara District Council funding, whether it be cows, sheep, trucks, if it's Waiheke, or you know, other types of modelling, concrete mixes and Chicago. You know, you've got options to attract different styles of funding with this model. And then I had a wee approach to Shade Systems on the hoof to see how we could actually create an enclosure around the hydro toddler pool. You didn't see it in the last report because they were just swamped with getting their seasonal structures ready for bowling greens and the like. So Shade Systems informed me that what you see there is a concept design would cost around 150 to enclose it.
It's not bad.
It's pretty good.
And that.
I was surprised as
The pool's heated enough that it would, if it could close in, it would become, is it all year, part year?
Oh yeah.
All year.
That reduces your heating big time, right?
Big time. Yeah. So what you see there is a more fabric structure that we can roll up and roll down, but it also retains a lot of the heat that creates a comfortable environment. It's not going to affect the plant for operating the pool, but it certainly changes the environment a little bit.
And takes the wind down a bit in winter.
Well, yeah, the prevailing wind was what was causing it.
Even in the summer, for lessons for sort of under fives, in that toddler's pool, when there's a westerly or even a southerly coming down that main road, they cancel the lessons because the wind is just all cold for the little ones to go in there.
How do the numbers extend out when you cover a pool like that? If you've had, say, 20,000 visitors this year, but then you go and cover the pool, make it available year round, are you going to potentially double your use?
Wouldn't you then be looking to team up with a local Learn to Swim organisation who's going to lease it over the whole year, or the 8 months that it's not open to the public or
If I
something?
may add, not only is the Learn to Swim and the toddler's pool in there, there's also the hydrotherapy, which is a big issue for health. And the aging population we've now got in Dargle, but also the winter sports clubs using it for recovery. Soccer teams, rugby teams, league teams, netball, where they don't have that facility at present.
Yeah.
I think, Craig, to answer your question, we won't double it because we would have a more winter perspective and around access to it, and a lot smaller facility that would be open. But it would probably work on about 40%. And my modelling in the big report is around 40% increase. Because we've got our regular patronage coming back, 3 or 4 days a week, 4.3 times a week.
So how does the synergy work with the high school? Because they obviously don't swim in their pool. Do they all year round, or do they?
They do.
They do.
Yeah, but the high school uses so they don't have a 50-metre pool. So the 50-metre pool is used for all regional competitions. But yeah, the high school will use it for lessons and for their own in-house sports until they get to that regional competitions.
And it's closed for clubs as well.
So if I could just add that the main pool will be closed in the winter, the exposed 50-metre pool won't stay open.
No.
With this idea. But the high school pool is a 25-metre lane pool only. It doesn't have the hydrotherapy or the Learn to Swim ability for children. So they actually complement each other through the winter.
easily. And that's kind of the idea. That's exactly the idea.
One last one from me. I seem to recall the entrance charges were very reasonable, very reasonable. I thought it might be a little bit of movement.
Very low, in fact, not reasonable.
I was being
Used to the community, but, and that was a recommendation from Craig Carter as well, that that's about time you reviewed those, because even a $1 increase would throw the numbers up significantly for pool entry. Whilst we're in the middle of a challenging economic time.
Every dollar's about 25 grand.
So, you know, if we can get those pool entries up closer to 100K, then we've got quite a viable community facility.
So I remember one of your famous presentations way back when someone said to you, is there any pool in New Zealand that doesn't cost the ratepayers to keep open? And you said, no, none of them are self-funding, right? But the point being is if you have to fund a pool through your community or your council, what is the acceptable cost? Can it come down from what we're paying now, do you think, once we get all this done?
Yeah, certainly the modelling that I've created, if you take over the pool and operate it yourself, you're going to save 50K immediately in my modelling. Because you don't have some of the indirect costs that are associated with Sport Northland and their modelling.
Still have a big capital outlay to make.
Absolutely.
Drop and run costs.
If you want to, you can still run the thing as it is now ineffectively, but I wouldn't recommend.
That's a lot of Lambeth.
Without laughing too much, but it's still a virgin site as far as advertising, isn't it? There's no corporate sponsorship or anything.
Apart from your sign.
Was it, they put it back up, has they?
Yeah.
Probably should take it down because we're closed there. But
That's a register, by the way.
yeah, but they've got no there's not,
No, there's no
Meridian Energy Centre or anything like that.
No.
Is that a viable income stream as well?
Depends which model you choose, but yes, it is, absolutely. If you're in a PPP model, absolutely.
Is that something we could hit Mercury Energy with?
So through the chair, what we're doing today is we're seeking direction on your preference for those two options, whether or not you would like to consider taking the management of the pool in-house and continuing a similar level of investment towards the pool, and then considering that further capital investment in the long-term plan, or whether you prefer to, because Sport Northland want to divest the ownership of this pool, okay? So the options are we take it over or we push it to an incorporated society, in which case we would still have to probably provide some level of grant to continue to have that pool open to the community. So it's continue with the grant, and I would suggest that when we go into a funding agreement to have a future grant with an incorporated society, that it would be a lot tighter than just $500,000 and you provide us an annual report. I would expect that there would be some really tight criteria if we were going to be providing funding to an incorporated society, and then whichever is your preference. I guess that's the direction we need to understand so that we can pass that to Sue's team to model within our long-term plan.
So bear in mind, everybody, the long-term plan is not pressing us immediately. You might want to reflect on this information.
Yes.
Quickly, is it possible to investigate the PPP model, but not run the risk of it closing for the next season?
Yes.
So through the chair, this coming season is budgeted for in our annual plan. So
It'll be the next one.
it will be open this season.
It kind of depends how quickly you can put that model into place.
Correct.
Yeah.
So when you say this season, it's only got about a month to run.
Sorry, this coming summer. So yeah, next season.
I think as a council, we're committed to keeping it open in perpetuity, and that includes the funding that covers through the next financial year, 1st of July anyway. Some time to work on how that model looks, whether it's the PPP, the trust or whatever, but we need to get on with doing that now so that we can actually answer those questions for the long-term plan. So let's get our heads around it and make sure we actually have a position to tell staff as soon as possible on how we want to advance this. But we're not putting ourselves in a position where it's at threat, because it's going to be remaining open through budgeted funding. Yep.
And that said, is exactly what number 3 says in a different way, that recommendation.
We've lost it somehow.
Sorry.
Wait.
Okay,
Which is about
Oh, yeah,
proper due diligence.
yeah.
is everyone
Be time.
Yep, we're all heading in a direction. We haven't landed, but we do need to get there soon rather than later. Yep.
Any feedback or questions, please feel free to send them through.
Just looking at your forecast, even getting that operating hours, it's still a $400,000 to $500,000 a year investment in terms of grant from the council, right?
Yep.
We're into that. As long as we have to pull anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. And I maintained right at the start that between 400 and 500K is a sweet spot for operating expenditure for a pool of that scale.
0.5% on rates, eh?
1%.
Yes, I think 600,000 is about 1%, so it's very close to a percentage.
5 years' time, if you keep CPIing it, you're going to be at 600K.
So that's what I'm proposing to cap for this annual plan, is to not increase with CPI and to maintain at the $480,000 commitment. So it doesn't continue to increase with 3% every year.
Okay, thank you very much, Brett and Hayley. We will now move on to the Sportsville Stage 2 funding with Mark. Thank you, Mark.
Saying, Mark, pull up a chair.
Yeah, doing really well.
I reckon that is Italy.
No, it's Venice, wasn't it? Or there was elsewhere. It's Cargill. Mine's about.
Yeah. Okay, so Dargaville Sportsville, Stage 2. So we've got a picture there of the current Dargaville Sportsville in Stage 1. So this building provides changing rooms and toilets, meeting facilities, kitchen facilities, and storage facilities to support the outdoor courts and the outdoor playing fields at Memorial Park and Rugby Park in Dargaville. And the group there have been working with the community, with local community, and working with potential funders, and working on looking at Stage 2 to further expand the facilities and offerings that are available there. And the two key priorities that they came to with the community were indoor court facilities. They could also be used for community events and Six Kamarani, other things as well. And the other one that they were working on was some form of outdoor bleachers or seating to watch games. This is sort of a high level indication of how that could look. I think they've agreed now the preferred area is in behind the current Sportsville.
You blow that up?
Can we blow it up and have a look at it? We can. I don't know if we can do that actually on here. But it's we can certainly circulate something.
So your bleachers thing, is it the plain white bit on the right?
No, that's sort of been on the end there towards field number 1. So by field 1 there. And
Oh, okay. A lot of bleachers. Okay, I see what you're talking about.
yeah, and this is the ground floor plan. So that's showing a thin strip of bleachers there. With the bleachers then continue over the top of the first floor. Oh, sorry, of the ground floor. You'll probably see it better in the next slide there. So the key priority is to get their basically great big steel shed built which can house the indoor courts, and then they can progressively build onto it over time, including things like the bleachers, the VIP room, changing rooms, storage facilities, etc. But they want to start with a great big building to house the indoor courts, and thinking of having 2 indoor courts side by side with a central court laid over the top, so that competition sports could be on the central court with seating and spectators around the outside, and then during training you could use both courts. Speak up a bit. Okay, so that's what they prioritize. Essentially, quite similar to the facility that we're in. We've got the indoor courts there next to us. So they have approached the Northern Regional Council, and the Northern Regional Council have allocated $1.2 million from their Regional Sporting Facilities Fund. So there's a targeted rate across Northland, which they raise funds, and then they allocate that around Northland. And in this case, they've gone around and allocated it to this facility. However, to uplift that funding, they have to meet certain criteria. One of the criteria is for a commitment to the project to be shown by the council, the Kaipara District Council in this case. So we have to show a commitment to the project by putting it in our long-term plan or annual plans in our planning documents. And they want to see a commitment of about $500,000 or more from the Kaipara District Council to show that this is a priority for us as well as for the sports group and for the wider community. While they'd prefer to see that in this coming annual plan, we don't have to put it in this annual plan for the group to still get this funding. We could put it in year 1 of the LTP, hence it becomes a long-term plan discussion as to whether or not we want to include that in year 1 of the LTP. In terms of where we might provide that funding from, the normal place we'd look to is reserve contributions. The reserve contributions for Dargaville area is currently in deficit. We need to accumulate more reserve contributions to bring that back to a positive balance, and then accumulate more to bring it up to a sufficient balance. The other thing we could do is look at a debt funding our contribution and then recovering that through rates or a local targeted rate or various different rating models. So that's some ideas of where the funding could be sourced from. We'll also need to be considered against competing priorities. There are, of course, many priorities for council funding. There's a few of them listed there. So in terms of next steps, this is another project for you to consider for the long-term plan. So you need to give consideration to that. And then as we go on to develop the long-term plan and to prepare our long-term plan budgets and continue to come back to you for input into those budgets, into the long-term plan, that's somewhere where you can then give us guidance, give us direction as to if this needs to be a project which we include for funding, included in our long-term plan. Any questions?
Questions on that one, Councillor Williams?
Chair, is there, it's not like a, if we don't put something in it by a certain time, that money is taken away, or what are the rules
Great question.
around that? Because
So my understanding is that if we don't include some money in our long-term plan and demonstrate that there is a commitment to this project in our long-term plan in year 1, then the money can be allocated elsewhere.
You just clarify me for the uses that are going to have within that building. It's for indoor netball, basketball, all sorts of.
Yep.
Pickleball, all sorts of, cover the whole range, or?
That's right. It's multi-use indoor court facilities, so it covers the full range of indoor sports as well as things like performing arts, any kind of community events, etc. Yes.
Did it have to be half a mil, 500K? Where did that number come from? I'm just curious because
We had some discussions with Northern Regional Council and did sort of have a bit of a, so how much? Sort of
would need to,
it would be a minimum.
that's a minimum.
So demand is there for it out there? I mean, I don't know the area, but for you.
There is a demand for it. And one of the things that the indoor sort of space would be used for is not only for sports, but for also, staging meetings and that of considerable sort of
Size.
note, so. But the area itself is like probably one of the most used places, around for netball, tennis, rugby league and soccer, or sort of
That's
that
fine.
area. And then during winter, that's where everyone goes into in one spot.
So would that potentially take the pressure off some of the other facilities that we no longer have? With the deterioration of the town hall, et cetera. It's going to be able to fill a few of those holes.
Which places though?
Well, we've got buildings we can't use now. There's this one here could potentially fill some of those gaps too, couldn't it?
Even here.
No, like for the town hall that's currently.
Yeah, well, it could do.
Yeah.
It could do.
It helps, put it that way.
It helps, but I think you do need a dedicated town hall.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying we don't.
Oh,
I'm thinking
it's not
that
a-
it's still.
In the short term, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just to total, councillor Snow, it is utilised for quite a few different things. Obviously, the tennis courts are there and a lot of community organisations use that space for whānau events. So yeah, it is a well-used area.
Yeah, Dimension Soccer's there as well.
And soccer.
So if I could just add, we've had a change of demographics of how this is all run. 10 years ago, everything centred around the high school with the netball and everything based up there. And it was basically grass winter sports down at Sportsville and corded sports. And now that's all amalgamated into the one area. The school has a gymnasium too, but it's not readily open for public use. And sometimes there's problems with children or young people who have been excluded from school, can't get in there, or they're not a member of the school. So it's not readily accessible to the public, and the way the schools have gone where it's become more isolated just to the school community. So if you want to have an indoor game of basketball or badminton, there is nowhere. There is nowhere in the town.
And I take your point, Craig, around, badminton used to be played in the town hall. There's nowhere to play it nowadays. So.
The parking that's shown on here, is that existing or is that new too?
So there's parking at that particular site, and it is terrible. But then there's lots of parking over at the rugby grounds, which is right next door to it.
But where it's shown here on our little presentation, Mark, the grey areas of parking, and they're existing parking, or is this part of this?
Those are additional.
Those are additional?
Oh, there's some existing parking under the.
Yeah, because that's not there at the moment.
I'm just going to say, if you're adding extra activity bases and you're already running pretty much every sport known to man, they're already going to need extra parking.
Additional parking is something that's required there.
We've got those additional parkings, we'll add a considerable amount of parking.
If you have a look at the
Contribution to this project could be to fund things such as the additional parking, so long as there is a contribution to the project. It doesn't have to be the big building itself. Provided council's putting a contribution, it could be the parking.
So if you have a look at the building that pokes into the bottom of the page here, and the car parking to the left of it, that is actually donated land from a neighbouring landowner who has provided a massive car park there free of charge. So,
Nice of them.
yeah, well, there's some community involvement that way.
Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Worship. What would be involved in if it was going to be like a targeted rate funded? Because keeping in mind, if we're already going from general rate into the swimming pool and a lot of other things, is that a consultation issue to make a targeted rate to cover it for the users?
You do have to consult on your targeted rate, but we'll be doing this through the long-term plan, which we consult on anyway. So yes, in terms of funding options, currently council recognises Memorial Park and Sportsville as being, and Rugby Park that precinct as being a district-wide facility. Because it's a competition level sport, we have people coming from all over the district to play there, and indeed all over the region to play there. So there's a grounds there, you could put it on the, on the wider general rate. You could, you could look at raising the debt and then recovering and servicing the debt through through a targeted rate on Dargle community. So there's options there which could be explored together with the community. Conversely, you could look at recovering funds through reserve contributions, financial contributions. So there's a few funding mechanisms there, but ultimately it's a question around funding priorities. So
I think that's the thing. Obviously, we've had the Kaihu Valley Trail. There's a lot of other new things to consider. So I think as elected members, we kind of need to rationalise what the priority is and we go from there as we work through the long-term plan. Because obviously you can see there's a lot of other projects and things that may have shortfalls that we also need to think about too. So I'm just, obviously we just.
If I can just add for this, in relation to some of those other projects, like the KVT is, it's going to bring sort of, going to bring income in with, utilising sort of visitors into the area, and the amount of patronage that Sportsville gets currently is probably the biggest patronage by the locals from Ruawai North. So I think, as a matter of whether or not this is this is sort of aligned with some of the others is probably just get an understanding of the usage. Yeah.
Councillor Lambeth.
Do you know if Sportsville have a board? And I've got some pretty high-powered people on there that advertise for positions and CVs. And have they got funds to start this off? Or have they not bothered, or are they waiting, or what's their position?
the group that's working on this have funding from Lotto, which is what they're using. That's what they've been using to do their feasibility studies and so on. So to progress the project to this point. So it's been funded to this point by a grant from Lotto.
But there's no other form of active fundraising from them yet, or?
There seems to be a case of so seed funding, and like if you get there's the 1.2 from the regional council. If Kaipara District Council then provides $500,000 or more dollars to I suppose to access that seed funding, then you've got again so say about $2 million worth of funding, and then from there they'll go out further. The facility they're looking at here is potentially a $6 million facility, even in its early stages, and you start with that seed funding from local government, and then from there they will be approaching other funding providers, including the local businesses could look to sponsor. Once the main structure is built, and you then look at fitting that structure out, things that could be added later, things like soundproofing, for example, lining the internal structure, adding lighting, etc. Those become quite manageable sort of chunks for a local business to say, I'll sponsor this piece or that piece. But getting that big building up, that is the initial big challenge. They need to raise funding.
So what you're saying, with our funding, they'll be a third of the way there. With the
Through the chair, sorry, Councillor Lambeth. Just a question to you, Mark. We got any confirmation from NRC in writing about the quantum of funding that they're after from us? I'm just cautious that if we don't look to lock it down, there could be creep throughout the next year or something. So if they're saying, hey, can you guys put up 500K now? I don't want that to be $1 million in 6 months' time, for example.
I don't think we have not got that in writing from them. We did sort of ask for an indicative amount, but we haven't got that in writing.
Perhaps I could work with Jono and Phil Heatley, their strategic projects manager, on that as well.
Councillor Rogers.
Where does this all stand if NRC gets the P5?
Okay. Presumably the funds being provided are funds that have been collected from ratepayers for a specific purpose. So presumably the funding will stand, and the prior decision to allocate it to this project would stand, presumably. can't really comment too far into details there.
In terms of that, the simplifying local government proposal only contemplated the elected members not being there in December. The NRC organisation will still be continuing through all of those transitional arrangements as an entity. So the money's been collected. The entity will still continue and be fully staffed through that if government continues with the proposal after submissions, which we don't even know yet. So I think we can probably just about move on now, could we? There's a lot of uncertainty here. We've still got time to consider what we want to do with this. Yep. Okay, thank you. We're going to move to the Earlidge Park Sports and Recreation Development with Andrew Martin and Kim McEwen. Thank you, Andrew. Sam, sorry. Thank you, Sam and Andrew. And Sue.
So I'll just start by introducing it, but this project, the land was bought about 3 years ago by financial contributions, and it was purchased because it was the only piece of flat land in Mangawhai in the urban area at that time. So, and now we're looking at development. So I'll hand over to Sam and Andrew to run through some of the different scenarios that they've produced for this land.
Cool. Thank you, Sue. Kia ora koutou. I am Sam McKeown and I am a project manager with Business Delivery. This is Andrew Martin. Andrew is the asset manager for Parks and Open Spaces. So we will take the very long report as read, and through the chair we will present to you on Earlidge Park Sports and Recreation Development. So as Sue said, background on Earlidge Park. So it was purchased in 2022. It's 5.8 hectares of land secured by council for future expansion of sports and recreation in Mangawhai in the district. It's located close to Mangawhai Domain, providing an opportunity to support and complement the sporting activity on this site. Another complementary activity that could occur on the site is the Mangawhai Library. The library featured in the 24 to 27 long-term plan, and it could bring with it the opportunity to activate the site on an economy of scale to the wider project, particularly across engineering, design, consenting costs that can be spread across multiple deliverables in this development, significantly reducing overhead. Funding has been set aside in the 24 to 27 LTP for scoping, planning and consenting of Earlidge Park, and the investigative work and concepts presented here today and in the report are part of the scoping exercise for the site. So please bear with me while I go through the key technical findings. These are a little bit complicated, so shout out with any questions. So the preliminary geotechnical and civil engineering assessments were carried out on the site for feasibility and optioneering to inform the concept designs. So this helps to identify and analyze and compare various potential options for the site layout and determine the best, most cost-effective solution. The preliminary sport fields and facility layout options for the site were assessed against criteria like technical environment features of the site and surrounds. So this includes things like access to in situ infrastructure, like so your stormwater, sewer, roading, and other amenity like the domain across the way. Geotechnical considerations and good ground, water collection and water management, and good access and connectivity for people using the site. So good positioning, setbacks for fields and courts, site maintenance, buildings, parking, ensuring comfortable and safe use and movement around the site. And we also consider the financing and budget constraints, so consideration of council expenditure, identifying risks from the start to ensure budget is more secure. So it's a good due diligence exercise for a site of this size where construction and infrastructure work will be significant. It helps to minimize the risk and ensure maximum value by testing the knowns of the site against potential solutions or desired outcomes for the site. So we want to really optimize the project outcomes. So essentially what we know of the site will determine all development on the site. So what we know that the northeastern slope directs water towards the flat areas of the site. The flat land is low-lying and susceptible to flooding and tidal groundwater rise. The lower site is comprised of low-bearing capacity soils and materials that are prone to being seasonally wet, waterlogging, and potential settlement. The site topography means that small changes in surface elevation or grading can have a pronounced effect on drainage behaviour. So this is a key characteristic that needs to be considered in the design of the sports fields and any stormwater infrastructure. So the geology and groundwater on site have several implications for the site design. So there's a settlement risk. The ground materials on site pose a risk of long-term consolidation or compaction beneath loaded areas such as the buildings, car parks, and sports fields. Ground improvement and piled foundations will be required for structures. Slope stability. So ground movement has been identified across the northeastern hill slopes, and features such as creep and terracet development confirm ongoing soil movement down that hill. Groundwater sensitivity. So we've got shallow groundwater, which necessitates a robust stormwater and drainage system across the site for ongoing surface and groundwater management throughout the site. So council have previously indicated that they would like to investigate the northern corner of the top of the site of the hill as a location for a potential building and associated car parking. So we used that and we took it to do a comparative estimate. It was prepared to assess 2 different building and parking location scenarios. So one in that corner up the top of the hill and one at the bottom of the southeast of the site. So due to the slope instability and soil quality development of the sloped northeast area would require significant investment in civils work and retention for ground stabilisation. You can refer to that in attachment C. So how does all that translate into sport fields? So the flattest land on Earlidge Park is situated on the lower western end of the site, which is subject to surface water inundation. So sand-based, well-draining natural grass surfaces can be used throughout winter months when rainfall is higher. A common approach is the silt drain sand carpet system, comprising a network of primary subsoil drains connected to perimeter collectors, supported by secondary silt drains installed at close spacings beneath the playing surface. A sand layer is then placed across the entire surface to maintain infiltration and protect the root zone of the grass. So that in the slide that you see there is an example of the construction of a sand-based field. So the performance of traditional sports fields formed from locally available soils are strongly influenced by the regional geology and climate conditions. So while generally it's cost effective, there is limited capacity to manage wet conditions. Fields often become unplayable or prone to pugging in winter, but can then harden excessively under extended dry periods. So these are the issues that have been experienced by Mangawhai Domain. Sand or soil options have operational and maintenance requirements, the feasibility of which should be considered early on, and each will have costs to consider alongside the benefits. Both options will require irrigation in the drier months, and if there is building infrastructure on site, roof water can be collected for tanks. We can also investigate a bore on site. The sports field drainage and swale network will connect to the wider Earlidge Park stormwater system to ensure hydraulic performance and long-term operational efficiency. So I'm going to now pass over to Andrew to talk about how that translates into
everything else.
Yeah.
Right. Hi, everyone. So from earlier conversations and discussions on Earlidge Park, it's quite clear that grass playing fields are a priority component for potential development of the park. The cost of developing fields will vary depending on the type of fields we go for. The table, which is hopefully readable up there, but is also in Appendix A of the agenda of the item, it demonstrates the differences in field types, obviously the capital cost of developing them, but also importantly, the expected average playing time that you would get on a typical winter week from each type of field. If we look at the very bottom one there, sorry, the very top one, but the cheapest one, soil-based fields with no drainage medium in them. They're obviously very basic. They don't cost much to develop. They don't cost as much to maintain, but they do have quite a limited play capacity, especially in winter. And those capacity issues are probably going to show up quite a bit in the Earlidge precinct, especially if you look across the road to the Domain and some of the drainage issues we're seeing there. So the discussions on the cost that we'll get into in the rest of the paper have assumed that a sand-based field, so that's fairly well draining, you get between 15 to 25 typical play hours. That varies depending on site specifics. And as we progress through this discussion, you just keep in mind that for the LTP deliberations, members have an option of scaling those assets up and down and the phasing, etc., as finances and other appetites accommodate. So the next slide, please. Thanks, Sam. So as part of this work, we've reached out and spoken to a number of sports clubs regarding their current situation, what they're currently seeing in their capacity, what they're seeing in their membership, where they see their membership going, and what sort of other aspirations they have in that area. So I don't think in Appendix E there, I don't think any of that will be surprising from a Mangawhai growth context to anyone. There's quite a theme of a strong growth. Obviously, the clubs are growing. They're seeing the popularity of their codes grow, and with that comes an increased need for various facilities. I just want to stress at this point that the clubs that you can see up there are the main ones, and also the Domain Society are the main ones that we've engaged to date. But as we progress through the deliberations and other aspects of Earlwich Park, we will include a wider range there.
Can I just ask you where netball plays at the moment?
At the moment, they practice at the school, but they play in the league at Centennial Park in Wellsford.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Just in the previous slide, sorry, just to go back to that, you've got soil-based, no drainage. There's no option there for soil-based with drainage. I just wondered, would that have been a good comparison to see?
You probably could put that in there. That's sourced from a Sport New Zealand document that had that excluded. So we can probably piece that together as well as a middle ground. Yeah.
The other option. Okay.
So we are on to just the next slide there. So now we're getting into the somewhat exciting parts. So the colourful map you can see up there is roughly the 5.8 hectares or the 58,000 square metres that Earlwich Park comprises, broken down into its key base elements. Again, I just want to stress that the orientation and the actual position of a lot of those components is a potential rather than a plan at this point. It just shows how everything, if you take out the corner slope and you take out some other requirements, just how much land we have left over for the actual sports facilities there. So at a high level, you can see the northeastern hill there, which is quite a steep hill. That takes up about 1.8 hectares of the block. And then we have some other considerations such as the plant edging. We've got the planted swale down there, which is option D. The parking, which at the moment we'll see in the next few slides, has various crossings. There's a toilet facility down there at the front. And that leaves, once all of that's spoken for, about 2.8 hectares of flat space for various sports facilities. So if we use the standard New Zealand unit of measure for land area, which is a rugby field, obviously that's probably just under 3 rugby fields without any spectator. And obviously we probably wouldn't fit them on there anyway. So if we can just go to the next slide. So we have, that looks a bit better. Option 1 there, we have shown that there is, what this does is, obviously I don't want people to get too focused on the actual line markings we've used there. We've put 2 football fields just to demonstrate what size, those are full size football fields, what sort of line markings and what field could accommodate each component there. So obviously in the top right there, we've got the northeastern hill. We've got about 2.5 hectares of proposed sand-based drainage, drain fields there. We have the toilet down the front, and then in 2 and 3, we have a couple of small junior training casual practice spaces as well. So we'll get into the costings in the next couple of slides, but you can see there that an important part of this will be where the car park meets the road. So at the moment in this layout, it comes off Earlwich Drive. When we go to consent, etc. on that, we will have to consider how that all works in terms of traffic movements.
Around the outside, the black line, is it your drainage?
That is a setback and a planting around the outside there.
Oh, yeah. So when you've got a lot of stormwater coming down, where's it going to exit? Out through the domain or to the right?
It's going to, primarily most of the water will join that swale there, which is 6, and then join Moy Street.
Centrally.
It's really central, but.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, in large scale weather events, it's all bets
Yeah.
are off in
But when
some
it gets to
respects.
the end of that, where does it then go?
So that joins the existing stormwater network there, and there is,
Yeah.
there as part, I think as part of the Triangle, we did find there was capacity to manage water within that network already.
And that must run out past the domain and go out.
No, that one that goes up,
Oh, it goes
Up
up
Moy Street,
towards
yeah.
the bottom of Tara there, and that's all. No,
yeah, towards the estuary. Yeah.
towards the estuary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah,
run
it's
side of the
straight.
road.
Yeah, that's right through.
Where that trap is.
So Lambeth,
The positioning of the toilet and change facility,
Mm.
it just looks totally illogical being there. What was the rationale behind putting it
So that there,
down there?
that's an expected question. So the next couple of options are going to show if we went to this and then there's some progression. So if we had a stage 1, then a stage 2, the position of that toilet being near the road in this situation does make it a little bit safer. But if we can go to option 2, just for now to the next one, you can see that if we were to do option 1 and then a few years later option 2 to build it up more, it sort of flows on that one. But like I say, these components can be moved around. If we never progress past option 1 and it was just going to be fields for the foreseeable future, we might put the toilet somewhere else. Anyway, the option 2 is largely very similar to option 1, but obviously a lot of that practice space has been taken up with hardcourt facilities. Again, these are not plans, these are potential layouts just to demonstrate how the land could be used in various configurations. So there's now an exit off Moy Street, which will progress, we'll show why that is there in option 3. And again, just noting that the line markings that we're putting on there, those can change. So we've obviously got an athletic field, a cricket pitch, and a wee softball field there, just to demonstrate that you could either paint it up as 2 football fields, or in some perhaps have that layout as well. That's an operational issue that would obviously come later.
And 8 is a grandstand or terrace.
Yeah, so eight is some potential bleachers or something there built into the side of the hill.
So we haven't put any building or parking infrastructure on the slope because of the instability of the slope, and planned everything toward the area where it was going to be more cost effective to put infrastructure like that in place.
Is it that bad a ground? I mean, the whole other side of the hill is covered in houses.
So houses and parking infrastructure and scale building are quite different to each other. We have shown in the documentation that attached to the report just the difference between doing it up on the top and just, for an example, if we put it up on that top corner with the parking associated with having something like a sports field there, sports facilities, you take up that corner of the land versus down in the bottom area. There was about a 2.1 million difference within the ground retention and stabilizing that would need to happen in that area to allow for that infrastructure to go up in the bottom, the top corner, as opposed to down in the flatter land. It's obviously cheaper to build on flatter land than it is to try and take it up into a sloped area. You also have the risk built into building anything in that corner because we have that scene terrace setting and that slope movement, like it's a visual. And then the geotech have gone into it and they've said, like, you could look into that, but you also open yourself up to a great amount of risk if the slipping is quite deep in the land.
Just out of interest, with netball courts, do they encourage the use of astrograss on them, or are they steel or concrete nowadays?
It'd be concrete.
Yeah, tar seal and concrete. There is a more modern school of thinking that sprung wood is probably the way forward, but obviously that's a completely different kettle of fish in terms of cost. You have to compromise somewhere.
Yeah.
Sorry, Andrew, just in terms of your football field dimensions, what have you used on that previous slide for your length and width?
Those are the standard, I think, international FIFA size footballs, those two.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's,
how do they compare to a standard rugby field?
Rugby field slightly larger because of the tri-zone.
So are we making them so that they're compatible with rugby as well? Or have you only got the minimum required for a?
Well, we could fit a rugby field perhaps the other way around on that one. We just demonstrated, we obviously can't make the land bigger.
Because I, from what I can see online, a soccer field is 100 to 110 long and 64 to 75 wide. And a rugby field is 100 to 144 long and 69 to 74 wide. So if you were to make it slightly longer, it appears that you could still fit 2 rugby fields there. You just have to go a bit further across.
Toilets into those.
Yeah, well, not if that, no, not width, length. So there is potentially room to actually accommodate 2 rugby fields with a little bit more length.
Just want to be conscious of your setbacks, the swales, viewing area, spectators, things like that, to be able to size it nicely that people can use it comfortably.
Well, that's fine. I'm just raising the fact that rugby is not an isolated sport in New Zealand. And if it could be accommodated with some tweaking.
Yeah, any of the pieces there
would
repicted. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just lines.
Right, so option 3.
That's 2. That's 3.
So option 3. This is potentially superseded by other discussions, but this one here is the layout with the potential for a building there in place of one of the some of the what were netball courts in the last stage there. So changes in this one obviously include the addition of the building, an additional 50, I think 47 to 50 parks there. And yeah, that one there is just provided as an example of what could be accommodated there in terms of the building. Noting Sam's earlier comments about the location on the hill and the associated engineering difficulties.
What is that? What's number 7? Sorry, at the top there?
That's a small pocket park. So that's the appendix has the key on it.
Just using up the space.
Yeah, yeah. That could be the slope is sort of open to. It's an example there again, rather than
It can be activated a number of ways, like a walking track or planting or a trail or mountain bike track or, you know.
You've got a reduction in netball. Is that what I'm saying there?
From stage, yeah, from stage 2 to stage 3 with the building there, there's a sacrifice of some of those hard court facilities.
I'm just wondering how popular netball is.
To the same sort of commentary as to like the lines on the pitch, like if there's an internal space or a concrete area, the lines can be adjusted and changed either, each season or, as a different sport becomes more popular and the need greater.
Excellent.
All right.
So if we can just go to the next slide after 3 there. So now we're getting into where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. So the overall costings, and these are just costings to consider once we get to the long-term plan deliberations that Sue and her team will be leading. We've drafted up some high-level figures for some of the key components that we would need for development of Ehrlich Park there. I'm happy to take questions as we go, perhaps, but I'll just quickly run through the science behind each of those numbers if I can. So the construction of the fields is taken from an inflated. There's a Sport New Zealand report that gives some guidance on field construction. We've inflated that to 2025 numbers and provided, I think, about a 30% loading on that for sand-based fields with irrigation and also with drainage. So the irrigation is perhaps maybe a little bit of a luxury item, but if we do have sand-based fields on there in the summer, it may be required. That's TBC. The next item is the parking, the driveway and the hard surfaces. So that cost there is based on the stage 1 and 2 car park. That's taken from unit costs from our roading team there. And then depending on other components such as netball courts and the like, that may vary as well. So the next item, we've got a little bit of allowance there for some of the work that may be required at the base of the hill. Any minor cutting and retention there to accommodate some flat surfaces for parking, etc. The next item is an estimate at a toilet facility. So we've roughly calculated a recent build, say Fagan Place there, And then in stage 2, if we wanted electrical work such as lighting, either car park lighting or field lighting, there's an estimate there as well. If we did progress this, we would have to consider some work on Moy Street and or Earlich Drive, simply because of the increased traffic movements. It's quite likely we would have to maybe have some turning bays, some traffic islands, some extra crossings. So a rough estimate's been made there at what we would need to improve the roading outside the park on. It's quite likely that we will, whether or not we get subsidy on that's TBC, but for now we've been a bit conservative and assume that because it's our development, it'll be full cost. And then the next couple of items is the slope development, boundary planting, the visual amenities, everything that isn't really necessarily required for a sports park to function as a sports park, but is there for the later bits. And then we've built in a 10% contingency there, bearing in mind that the whole lot is a rough order of magnitude. So there is strong potential for variability depending on how and when we kick off the project. So, yeah. So we've included in the item a report from Community Asset Solutions. We commissioned a report into the Mangawhai domain. They've obviously got capacity in terms of space, but some of their drainage and some of their fields are not optimum. So we commissioned a report into what sort of work could be undertaken on the fields that we already have across the road. They're not owned by council, but they're a community asset to up their drainage and to get them working a little bit better. So this item here is just to gauge your appetite if we do want to consider that as an option in the LTP or as some sort of other item for improving what's across the road there. That just ties into the overall strategic direction of Earlich Park, which is to increase sports capacity in Mangawhai as a whole. Yep. And so yeah, next steps. Thanks for bearing with us here. So we're obviously seeking some direction from members today on some high-level options. So what components members would like to see us foster into those workings for inclusion in LTP deliberations, the level or the quality of each of those assets. So whether we go soil or drainage, sand-based, the car parking whether we'd like other hard court surfaces. Some direction on phasing. So obviously we can do a all at once proposal where we get a gold plated park all in in a short amount of time, or whether we phase it over some time to do that. And also consideration for funding options. So all of this has to be funded somehow. So whether that's going to be debt or financial contributions, I think all of that's going to be part of the long-term plan projections that need to be considered alongside this work. So thank you very much. Just happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Andrew. I think this is a relatively new council, and I think it's really important to give clarity around sources of revenue, and so we've got all sorts of projects being put up. I think as we work through the long-term plan, let's really be very clear on each item where the money might come from and where money has come from, because as I understand it, the acquisition of the land came entirely from reserve contributions, did it? It's growth paying for growth facilities in this instance.
Yes, for purchasing of the land. However, that was $5 million, or that it was taken out of our reserves.
Yes.
We've had a number of other projects, so I'm anticipating that probably at the end of this financial year, there might be 300,000 starting, that's the start of the build-up, because we've had such a lot of projects with the Mangawhai Shared Path,
yes,
with the Surf Club car park. There's a number of the playground up at Wood Street. There's a number of other projects where money is going to be taken out of financial reserve contributions for Mangawhai. Yes. So it's what I'd probably see for this project is it's likely to be over maybe a couple of years, and we will get probably about 2 million each year from financial contributions. We could also look at development contributions as well, because getting some of the facilities we're providing for are for growth for the future.
So perhaps if in the next iteration, we could actually see some of the forecasting around what financial contributions are anticipated, because we know what subdivisions are coming on, and there's a significant amount of residential happening at Mangawhai. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Canton, then Councillor Jepson.
Your worship. Doing something today is generally cheaper than doing it tomorrow. So even if where there's no money in the kitty now, but we're expecting $2 million a year for however long, I take it we have the ability to go, well, let's fund this for a short period of time, or
Yes, we could do
2 to 3, 5 year period, and pull it back there, and understand there is a cost to doing that, but I think there's also a cost of not doing stuff as well. So
Yeah, that's certainly, can do that if council decides they want to do it in one week. We could work out what percentage we think might come from DCs, what we will have in the kitty at the start of the LTP, or at the end of that first year, and then what the difference is. We could fund for debt for say a year, and then basically take it out of financial reserves.
do we have to debt fund it? Have we got internal debt funding
We
available?
do know we have internal funds too, so, and internal loans, and we detail those in our annual report.
Did you have something to say?
Just to clarify with regards to development contributions, there actually needs to be a project in our DC policy for us to be able to take DCs for it. Right now, it's not in there currently.
That's right. If we
Would envisage us doing an amendment to our DC policy, which council's already talked about, that we'll do through the next LTP anyway. So it's a possibility, and we can definitely do that, but I'm just flagging that it needs to be in our DC policy for us.
Yeah, so what we have to look at is what projects do we have that might actually, we want to put in the DC policy, because you have to review the DC policy. Normally it's at the same time as you do the LTP. So we'll be doing it exactly, because that's when you have your projects in mind.
Councillor Jepson, then Councillor Lambeth.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit nervous about, are we going to get the flow of DCs? Because if you listen to Brad Olsen from Infometrics the other day, he said that the slight improvement in our economic uptick has not been driven by housing for the first time. And things are pretty slow out there in that regard. But I mean, we had a presentation, I think it was from the Mangawhai Soccer Club some time back, talking about how they had a huge number of players, but they didn't have enough area to play on. I'd like to see staff also look at the immediate need is for more playing field. And so that we stage it, so that the first thing we do is get the drainage and the fields up and running. Even if you have to put temporary toilets in there for the soccer kids and stuff on a Saturday, we get things moving and do a stage that's not going to be destroyed by any future stages, obviously, but get the drainage that, if it's a sand base, I would say, I think we've probably got still available sand around our community at the right price. We wouldn't necessarily be paying a fortune for sand, depending on how lucky we got, because at times there's a surplus in the construction industry around the town, and other times it's in short supply. But I'd like to see it priced out so that we stage it with the priority being fields first. Get that done, get that started straight away.
Yeah, thanks for that. And you are correct. There is a bit of judgment on when you get the resource consent in and plan changes in, but it can be up to 5 years or longer that you actually see the money coming in for DCs and financial contributions.
And
Councillor Lambeth.
just following right on from that, I had 2 points, but getting those fields in and that car park there will have to go with it, because otherwise you're going to get a massive traffic problem. If it's good enough for Dargaville people to walk on gravel at Sportsville, it's good enough to Mangawhai people to walk on gravel. For a start.
Yeah.
Until we work out what's there.
Yeah, you don't permanently put that.
But, and also going, so, yeah, because the car park will have to go there, it's going to create a massive problem otherwise, because we can see what they're, but it's huge. But going on that DC policy, if we change it to accommodate this, ideally for Moonlight and the race course, it can look at Sportsville too on the same bill.
Okay.
Yes?
There's a process to go through.
Yeah.
Sport, so through the chair, for sports for, it's not going to be our property, so I doubt if we could put it into our DC policy. But certainly we could use, I think, financial contributions if you're trying to increase a capacity, then that's okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to maybe bring Brett back into the conversation with that. It's nice to see the report there regarding domain. The synergies that are going to exist between the existing facility across the road and Hurlich Park is going to be quite important, I believe.
The level of infrastructure already
Because, you
there.
know, yeah, you've got
You get that
toilets and
comfort.
buildings and stuff already on the other side. Brett, do you have any comment to make about that, about how they work together?
Yeah, as I explained to Andrew when we were leading, well, doing the investigation on this project, certainly they are complementary. What's the biggest issue being drainage is it's highlighted today. So whether or not you can build the capacity for the drainage through the village, side drainage out to the estuary will be the biggest challenge for engineering discovery. But yes, they're very complementary.
With the existing domain, was there any rough figures on what sort of investment that would require to get the field? Because I know they can fit, they've got 1, 2, they've got 3 or 4 fields over there.
Yep, we've got, in appendix, I think it's E, there's a.
Sorry, I didn't see that.
Okay, so there's a couple of options in there. 400,
It's D.
there's E, D, sorry, appendix D. Don't ask me what page.
Group engagement. I didn't see that on there.
Soil land from memory.
Yep.
Which is the commentary.
Yep.
Certainly, slip drainage that you pointed out earlier will require some considerable thought processing, given the geotech report.
So yes, goes 400, 600, potentially more. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? No? All good?
Thank you for the direction.
Thank you. Right, if anyone needs a break, we can have a quick break or we can carry on and finish this.
Have a coffee before
Have 5 minutes, we'll come back at 2:42. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thank you. Next and final item we have today is our long-term plan, early engagement measures that matter. Thank you, Jenny.
Sorry. Thank you, everyone. I take it that you've read the paper. The purpose of today's thought and exercise with you is to run you through the workshop that very similar to what we've been doing out in the community, but also we have run this with our elected members, with our activity managers. And today I'm going to run you through as elected members, and also, I don't know if the GMs can hear me, but asking the GMs here to participate as well. So I've just got a few notes around why we're doing this. So the Office of the Auditor General has said that the public service annual reports are not really focused on what matters to the community. So what they've asked nationally, so I was at an LTP conference last week, is that you as elected members and us as staff focus on what matters to the community. So today, as I said before, we've taken our activity managers through, and what we've asked them to do, and we're asking you as well, is to look at it from the aspect of being yourselves, not an elected member, so as a ratepayer. And what really matters to you. So it's really easy. You'll have some time to do it. I've dropped around some post-it notes to all of you in the break, and also to the GMs. And for each activity, I'm going to ask you, I'm just going to jump through here. This is normally done with 2 people, so I'm on my own today. Sorry, guys. So I'm kind of multitasking. So each of the activities, so the 7 activities that we have, there's 9, activities on here. And what we want you to do is go through with your post-it notes. If you can, number your post-it note, because I would normally get you to directly put them on a flip chart. We don't have that capacity today of where we are. So what I'd like you to do is go through, number your post-it note and identify what matters to you for each of those headings. So as a person, a ratepayer of KDC, what matters to you?
In order of preference.
Yeah, so you may have things that you want to put down there, and there may be ones that really you're not, well, I'm not saying you're not interested in, but it's not something that you've got a priority in that matters to you at this time. So it's the headings that matter to you.
Okay, so we don't have to do every single one, just what we're drawn to and what we.
Yes, yeah, and if it's every single one, that's great. If not, just number it on the ones that you're interested in. That's half an hour. If you can do it less time than that, that's.
Do you want to know names on them?
No, not at all.
In order of priority.
For us as a ratepayer.
As a ratepayer. Yeah.
What we're doing.
Yeah, that's why it should be really short.
Mm.
Okay.
What I am just going to do now is take you through the next, so if you just pause what we're doing, I'm just going to talk to you about what will happen after we've completed this workshop. And this is actually the end of the day as well, but so just the next steps. So next steps is the early engagement information that we're currently working in the community will be collated and brought to you. The activity managers will also receive the information and we'll prioritise the work over the next 10 years. So our aim is to, that's in April. And then as you can see in May, LTP briefings, you will be responsible for you will be responsible for the governance section. We'll be working more closely with you around that. And then there's nothing else on my notes we need to be doing. Yeah, so and then also just wanted to quickly run with you. I think most of you have actually been to our consultations. Yeah, so you know what we've been doing out in the community. We've got one more to go, so we've done the.
Seen any little coloured dots on there.
So that's what we're really wanting to bring back to you. And so over the next month, we'll collate all that information. We'll collate everything that's coming into us on the online survey and have everything ready to present to you in April. So you'll get all the feedback from us. And we've got one more consultation to go. So that's this weekend at the Mangawhai Beach Market. And also the online engagements finishes at the end of March, the 22nd, I think, of March. It is.
Do you mind if I do these on the 14th of March at Mangawhai?
The online early engagement survey and stuff, like me as a basic ratepayer, haven't seen any sort of advertising or anything like that in regards to being able to actually do a survey online of what matters most for ratepayers and stuff.
Okay.
How's that actually been communicated to?
It's been communicated through our regular media channels.
Yeah.
So our comms department are circulating that on a weekly basis out. Yeah. So I can check that.
Not through your lifestylers and your Mangawhai Focus and stuff?
Yes, it is.
Yes?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's our regular media channel.
Yeah. And does it go through Antenna?
Yes.
And Facebook?
Yes. Yeah.
Seen that on Antenna.
We'll follow it up though, just to
I believe you.
Haven't seen it.
No, let me see.
That's the last slide, isn't it?
All right.
And a recap of today, of what we've seen today, we've been working through is the environmental scan, the significant forecasting assumptions, the elected member priorities and projects, the activities, and then what matters to you. So thank you. Next month is the engagement feedback, LTP 2027-37 summary of engagement and communications plan and activities to continue. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Jenny.
Okay, so we'll continue.